It is, and you're right about Mike Bush. He should front up. He shouldn't be sending other officers out there. James, you and I have been around a long time and we try and talk common sense. I mean, that senior officer, Curran, said that those secure bins, the machete bins, will be monitored by CCTV. I mean, what kid who's done, 10, 12, 15 home invasions, stolen 14 Mercedes Benzes, is going to willingly go down there with their face uncovered and shove a machete in a bin?
Well, Steve, it's laughable and it doesn't treat the disease. And sure, you can try and get machetes off the streets, but if you still have criminals and young criminal gangs, criminals of all ages that are willing to hurt people, maybe even kill people, but are willing to commit crimes on a daily basis, well, they'll just move on to the next weapon or whatever it may be. So the bins are a complete waste of money. And you're right, the idea of someone just coming over and dropping one of these things in that they might have bought at a retailer 5 or 10 years ago is just laughable. But I think the key point here is it doesn't fix the problem here. And if you still have a crime problem, people will find another way to break the law and just not use a machete next time.
And guess what, James? I mean, these kids are largely members of gangs. Now, the gang membership is a strong bonding between these kids to commit crimes. What happens when gang member number 3 finds out that gang member number 1 has gone and forked up his machete into a bin, basically breaking the gang code? I mean, he's going to be watching his back for forever, isn't he?
Yeah, but again, the bigger issue here, and this is not just in Victoria, but it's a critical problem in New South Wales, particularly regional New South Wales, and Queensland has had all sorts of issues, is that we are failing to actually tackle and provide appropriate reforms to fix the issue of youth crime. This is a massive problem across the country. It's been driven largely or let down by woke bureaucracies. Victoria is a prime example of that. But weak laws that basically say that, oh, look, someone's got to be cuddled up to, or, look, they've had a tough life, let's give them a 9th or 10th chance. Well, I'm sorry, but when there's a victim of crime, there needs to be consequences. And I think most people that have been in that circumstance, that have had their car stolen, that have been the victim of an assault or something worse, maybe their house burnt down, I don't know, would be demanding action. And unfortunately, our laws haven't been strong enough. If anyone thinks bins handing over machetes is going to fix the problem in Victoria, they're kidding themselves.
Absolutely. Carolee, Business New South Wales, they've launched a Fair Work Commission petition calling for changes to the Clerks Award, which would see staff give up penalty rates if they're working from home. That argument's going to go down well with the union movement.
It certainly is, isn't it? No, yeah, right. Look, I think it's really important to, make the distinction that this is for people that are on award wages. I do think, though, that if you are working from home and you want to complete your work, so your 38-hour work week, you don't want to work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because you want to pick up kids, but you're prepared to do your work at 8 o'clock at night to get it done. If you're deciding that, then yeah, that is fair. But if your employer is expecting you to be working after hours when there should be a penalty, maybe after 10 or 11 o'clock at night, then I think that it is within reason that there needs to be some kind of a compromise come on penalty rates. But as we've seen the unions say, they want to ensure that there are no jobs lost to AI, and we just saw what happened with Atlassian, didn't we?
We went through an election campaign, James, and obviously work from home is something that affected the Coalition's vote badly. I mean, it was an ill worked out policy and they paid for it. Work from home has now become something that is part of the way we do business. I work from home a lot, and I would not think of claiming penalty rates, but I guess if somebody's told that they've got to they are working from home and they're working 12 hours a day and not 8, it's reasonable to get paid a penalty, isn't it?
Well, my views have softened on working from home, Steve, a little bit, and I tend to agree with you. I think 1 day a week, especially if you're working on a big project where you can stay home and not be distracted and actually punch something out, can be quite effective. But the problem is, and I had someone that runs a small business text me earlier because I was asking about how big a problem this is. For areas like IT and anywhere around that space, which is a lot of workers across the country, working from home remains the number one bargaining chip. When you're trying to employ someone and they're talking about salary and conditions, they want to work from home, and not just a couple of days a week, but full time. Now, I know a lot of the big companies and big banks have said you've got to be back in the office half of the time. We have to remember this did not exist largely apart from in certain sectors or when women were returning to the workforce, men and women after they'd had children. Working from home didn't exist before COVID. All of a sudden, it is the key bargaining chip, and so employers have to respond. But there has to be some sort of benefit to an employer and an employer's family and to an employer's business to employ someone and have conditions in place that actually benefit and help them thrive. At the moment, it is far too scaled more and more with Fair Work and the unions and the IR laws towards the rights of the worker, and there's not much left for the employer at the end of the road. The other point, and this is, I think, critical, is that people that work from home need to be careful, because I think these big companies are more saying, well, we don't need the office space. Why are we paying rent in the middle of the CBD in Sydney or Melbourne? The next step could be, okay, if we don't need you in the workplace, do we need you in the country? And how many of these workers are going to end up overseas before they end up in the hands of AI?
Well, Carol, you saw yesterday at Lassie and Mike Cannon-Brooks, he sacked a huge number of his workforce, and he basically did a pre-recorded message to them saying you don't have a job anymore, and he's replacing all of those jobs with AI. So, you know, if I had a job where I had a choice of being at home or in the office, and I thought that my boss might be getting a bit sick and tired of at-home working, I'd be getting my ass straight into the office every day of the week.
You and I both would, Steve. We're of that generation, but unfortunately younger generations, as James also said, since COVID, it's completely turned the workforce on its head and the workplace. I actually think that going to work, going to the office, it's more of a discipline as well. And you need that intergenerational knowledge. You need that. You need to be able to walk to someone's desk and say, look, I can't do this on the computer, and point to it, or say, listen, this is a better way of doing it. At the moment, we're all in little silos, the people that do work from home, and there's no inter-office connection. You know, that term, the water cooler conversation, that's all done. And we wonder why there's so much mental health illness as well, but that connection that people have to a workplace. And we all know that when you're working at home, you can stay in your pajamas, you can do a column, you can do whatever you might want to do, but the discipline of actually having to be somewhere, get yourself ready for work, showered, groomed, get in there, face the traffic, yes, but it's that discipline that I think sadly younger generations are actually missing. And as you say, and as James said, it's a huge risk with companies looking around at the space that they're renting for their offices if no one is going to be there. I think it's also a case of be careful what we wish for, otherwise we will all be replaced by AI.
The other problem, just on this, Steve, very quickly, is that there are...
By the way. Yes, James.
There are people, Steve, I think this is a really important point. There's people watching us across the country that are in frontline jobs, whether they be truck drivers, whether they be nurses, whether they be retail workers, tradies, that don't even have the option to work from home. This is a class issue, a laptop class issue. And so, you know, when we have these debates about what people can do in terms of working from home, there's large sections of the workforce that were the engine room of the economy during COVID that had to front up to work that didn't have this option, otherwise they would have been fired. And I think they've got to be considered in this as well. It really is a have versus have not when it comes to these complaints about how much you can work from home, whether you can claim penalty rates and all those sort of things.
Great point, James. James Kerrily, thank you very much for that.